Okay, guys, hello and welcome to the weekend video update. Let's give a quick overview of what the patterns are what I think the patterns are in operation right now, and what we may expect next week. All right, this is euro dollar. Obviously, for the last 2 weeks or so, I've been looking at this developing kind of structure to the downside. We'll see how it pans out, but so far it hasn't developed very impulsively. It still can be counted as an impulse, a beginning to an impulse to the downside, but we'll have to see how that develops over probably this week now. Right. So far, what I'm counting is a possible 1, 2, and maybe a developing 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This can also be, well, it's looking like it may be better to label this as a 1, 2, 1, 2, and then a spill down into a 3. We shall see. Obviously, probably quite early next week how that one is going to develop. The key resistance right now is at 118.58, and I've been mentioning that over the last few days. That's the bottom of this spike low labeled wave 1. If we break 118.58 on Monday, then that kind of negates the wave 4 gray idea here. So we'll see on Monday. Should 118.58 break, then we'll switch to a larger degree 1, 2, and lower degree 1, 2 pattern. In that case, I'd like to see this downward trend line hold without being broken. So we should, it will probably work out 3 waves here. This will probably work out to be an A, and then a B, and a C, and then we should find some resistance at that downward trend line there, hopefully to spill off down into the beginning of the new downtrend. So that is euro dollar. Sorry, yeah. Next week, then hopefully we'll see some clarification on what pattern we should follow in this case. Right, let's get on to pound dollar. Pound dollar. Yeah, this one has been a bit of a strange one of late. Definitely impulsive move to the downside. Excuse me. After completing a pretty clear 5-wave pattern to the upside. So, and hitting targets and meeting the A equals C here on the previous, let's go out to the 4-hour chart, on the previous structure to the upside. So you can see here this wave A, B, and C. So that A equals C is where wave A here in green equals the length almost to the pip of C. So we hit that last week, and we had a pretty conclusive impulsive move to the downside. So you can see it right there. It hit it like almost to the pip and dropped to the downside. So you can take it as coincidence, or you can take it that we have a larger pattern complete and we're now starting to move in the opposite direction. So what we're looking for right now is kind of clarification on that front. So I think on Friday I actually updated this chart as a larger degree 1 and 2 to the downside, but for illustration purposes it doesn't really matter. This is an impulse move to the downside. Right now I'm tracking this possible A, B, and maybe a C wave up to complete a second wave, and then with a bit of luck we'll continue creating a kind of a lower right hand shoulder, and we'll head off back into wave I think, yeah, wave 5 blue. So we've possibly completed wave 4 blue, and now we're looking for kind of confirmation to the downside in wave 5 blue, which should let's actually go to the 4-hour chart, maybe the daily chart actually. Yep, so we have wave 4 blue, and we should start continuing downwards. I mean, the targets right now for wave 5 blue are definitely below wave 3, so into the low teens, 12 or so like that. But I think we'll probably see parity in the longer run. But right now, what we need to see next week is kind of a development of this spike to the downside into a larger 5-wave pattern. So if we get a break of, like, say, previous highs, that wave A there, which would be, give me a price there, 132. If we see a break 132, then that kind of tilts the probability in favor of a completion of the larger wave 4, and kind of a nod in favor of a change in trend to the downside. So yeah, 132 looks like a pretty important price here. So we're sitting at, we closed out at 134.45 or so. So another 150 points, that will tick one more box in the kind of the developing thesis that we have turned, and we are now heading down into a kind of a resurgent dollar era, let's say. Okay, so let's get on to dollar yen. Dollar yen has been kind of the leading indicator really for the resurgent dollar. We have this lovely kind of impulsive pattern off the low here at 107. I think I was looking for the development at these spike lows here, but we got an extension of a pattern, a larger pattern, and the eventual rally, which I have been looking for a while, came over the last couple of weeks. So how we read that rally, it can be, obviously everything can be read a couple of different ways, but I don't see any way to read this as a correction in a larger, as part of, the larger correction at the moment. I think we've begun this new resurgent dollar phase with this rally, and I think pound dollar and euro dollar will follow suit excuse me, pretty soon. So let's get down into the short-term chart. Yeah, so here's the short term. Here's the half hour, is it? Yes, half hour chart. So off the low, I've been reading this kind of a 1-2-1-2 pattern. You could possibly read it another way, but I think at the moment this is the most fitting way to read it. We've had this kind of cool off in the last few days. I don't know if this is, does MetaTrader do that to you, where you have you've built up your chart and then suddenly you close it down and suddenly the whole thing disappears again? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Anyway, this wave 1 I've labeled in wave 1 pink here. That looks like a pretty clear impulse structure to the upside. We've got 5 waves in there. You can see, I think 1, 2, 3, probably a triangle, wave 4, and then 5. So I've got wave 1 and I think wave 2 possibly completed at the lows on Friday there. So my penmanship is not great this morning. I've been looking for another leg up in wave 3, and I think we could be seeing that early next week. The important key low here, key support, is 111.44, which I've mentioned a few times over the last few days. A break of the wave 1 high here will will kind of confirm that we're moving up again in another impulse. So we should be talking right now. We're talking about moving up in wave 3 of wave 3 of wave 3. So in theory, we should start seeing some pretty impulsive, pretty strong rallies to the upside. A third of a third of a third should bring with it some serious impulse to the upside. If it doesn't over the beginning of up till say Tuesday evening or something, if we don't see that kind of leap higher, then we'll have to revisit how I've labeled this. We could be talking about a larger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of pattern, which would kind of be a leading wedge type of pattern. If that's the case, we'll probably know by Wednesday we'll know by what's happened in the interim with this kind of correction here. Definitely, if we break 111.44, then we'll have to rethink what's happened on the upside here. All right, so that's dollar yen. This is stocks. Right, I've been there goes my chart again. So on Friday, I introduced the idea that we could be talking about I'm going to relabel this while I'm talking. We could be talking about the idea of contracting triangle here. So if that's the case, then it fits quite well, because the contraction triangle is usually a wave 4 phenomenon, or sorry, it's an ascending triangle I was talking about. So yeah, it fits with a wave 4 anyway, and that's what I think we are in right now, a kind of penultimate move to the upside. So this ascending triangle would be wave A down, wave B up, wave C to the downside, and we get wave D up, and then complete the larger pattern in wave 4 with a final little kind of minor correction to the downside. Then we should be off to the races again, up in wave 5. Obviously, this is gonna. We'll know soon enough whether this plays out. But I think if we keep seeing a contracting kind of range over early next week up until probably Wednesday, you're probably talking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday area, maybe Tuesday evening. If we see this contraction in range the whole way along, then then I think the best way to look at it, obviously, then at that stage is a wave 4 ascending triangle. So that'll probably, with the wedge or the triangle, comes another opportunity. At the end here, you're talking about 22,350 or something, where that might end. If you're astute enough, you might be able to ride that final pop up. And we could be talking within, I think I was saying 22,750 or something like that. So you could be talking about a sizable little 400-point rally here to finish off the larger pattern. So for early next week, that's what I'd be looking for, is this kind of, does this triangle keep playing out, and do we get a final pop to the upside? We should know by early next week if that is I think at the moment that looks like the best way to look at it. We'll know early next week whether that plays out or not. Right, let's move on to gold. And of course, my MetaTrader, you bastard, destroyed all my charts again. All right. Yeah, there's a little bit of a change here, but nothing major. I'm going to rejig this here. And wave C, wave A down, wave B possibly, and then down into wave C. Right. So what I've been looking at on Friday here was this correction to the downside looks like a developing or a completing triple combination. Now, a triple combination would be 3 waves in A, 3 waves in B, and then 3 waves in C, where each of those smaller waves can be counted as a complete correction itself. So we had 3 waves in A. I think this could be seen as a running flat, 3 waves in B, and then we get a normal kind of zigzag again, 3 waves in wave C. My voice is disappearing. So if that's the case, then we're probably looking at, I was talking about, I think 1263, where the 61.8% retracement came in. Yeah, 1263. We have a nice target there, and if we get A equals C, that would bring the target to 1260. So we have a kind of nice range there, excuse me, from 1263 to 1260. And if we see a bottom and a kind of a pop to the upside off that low, then we're looking pretty, I think at that stage it'll look pretty conclusive that that gold has in fact bottomed at the larger degree correction, which we changed to this week, and then we should be off on a pretty powerful rally in gold off these 1260 lows. Okay, so we'll know next week by the kind of the action we get off kind of the 1263 to 1260 area. On Friday we popped lower again, so it looks like that's probably what we'll get a run down to 1263. We finished at 1279, was it? So we'll probably get another, what's that, $15 or so to the downside, and we should complete this large wave 2 at those lows. So let's get into crude oil and get along here. All right, crude has worked very well this week, and on Friday was no different. I think the idea that we have seen a pretty significant top this week in crude is gaining strength by the day. We had 2 nice targets. We had 2 nice completing penultimate moves in these contracting triangles. First in wave 4, which worked out really well. We got a nice pop to the upside. Then this sideways action again. And on Thursday we were looking for, or Wednesday we were looking for calling another contracting triangle, another pop to the upside, and we got that pop to the upside on Thursday. And then immediately after almost hitting target, it didn't quite make 53, but I think it made 52.85 or something in that area. After almost hitting targets within a few pips, we had an immediate switch to an impulse move to the downside. Now, much as is the case, I think in, was it pound dollar as well, we got this, we reached a target and immediately moved impulsively off that target to the downside. It's a signal that we shouldn't ignore, that a target area is hit and pretty conclusively rejected, and you get this real rush in the opposite direction. That's a signal that, or a hat tip, that you shouldn't really ignore. So off those lows, we were looking for a kind of corrective rally and a possible wave 2, and so far I think we've got, I'm not going to say it's complete, but it's almost complete. We might get a kind of an expanded wave 2 here, maybe 3 waves up, 3 waves down, and then a completion to the upside in a larger 3 waves. And should we get that pop into, I think I was saying about 52 again, Yeah, let's give that a price check there. Above that larger trend line, yeah, 52, the low 52s, and a turn down that will create a kind of a lower high and a turn to the downside. And we'll be looking for wave 3. So for early next week, I'm looking at the completion of this wave 2 correction, and then signs that wave 3 to the downside has arrived. So that's the wrap up. I think I still took 20 minutes, but thanks for watching, and we shall see you on Friday, or talk to you on Monday evening at this stage. And have a great weekend, and hope we all make it through safely. See you later.